more effective for your business? Kind of learning and doing the technical side of all that comes with an online business yourself, or whether it's more effective to outsource to somebody else. Hopefully I've got a bit of an unbiased opinion on this, but I've seen both sides of the coin, and I have done both sides myself. And so I really wanted to bring this topic up today to have this discussion, because there might be things that you maybe haven't thought about. There might be some aspects of it that are new to you and are things to kind of really consider when you're thinking about making a decision on the tech stuff. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Do comment in if you're here with me live, or if you're watching this on the replay, just pop in #replay and let me know who you are and where you're tuning in from. It's been ages since I've been live, so I'm pleased to be back. I've just kind of had a bit of a mad rush because I finished exercising and just quickly tried to sort of blow dry my hair a bit. So I'm steaming up. That's why I'll put my glasses back on in a second. So it's been it's been over 2 months since I've done one of these live episodes in this show. I had to take a bit of a break just to reevaluate. Obviously took a break for Christmas and stuff, but I wanted to reevaluate things. So this show is now going to be every other week. Last year I did it weekly. And it was just all the things that I had created with my process, and I repurposed the hell out of this show. I wanted to reevaluate that. And so now I'm going to be doing this show every other week, which is going to be great. And I'll be testing out some different things, different days, different times and whatnot. So make sure you're kind of, you're subscribed, you're either on my email list or you're following me on social media so you can see when those updates are coming. But anyway, let's dive into this topic today. So it's kind of talking about tech stuff, and whether it's do it yourself or get somebody else to do it for you and outsource it. When you're running an online business, obviously when you first start, you don't think about all the things because you don't know all the different elements that come with building a business online and utilizing the power of technology and the internet to build and grow our businesses. There's so many different things. There's building an email list, there's funnels, there's putting a course together, there's onboarding your clients and your kind of client workflow and how you work maybe with one-to-one clients. There's doing live streams. There's so many different things. There's setting up a website. There's so many different things and different parts of it that it can get a bit overwhelming, can't it? When you're especially kind of in the earlier days when, maybe if you're not bringing in a consistent, decent revenue to cover stuff, then there's going to be things that might force your hand down maybe a particular side. So today I'm going to give you some pros and cons of, talk about each one, doing it yourself and learning it yourself or outsourcing it to someone else, and give you some pros and cons. Again, things for you to think about to help you make your decision. Let's see if I can not steam up from when I've just blow dried my hair and I'm like, whoo, a bit hot. I think when it comes to technology, it goes one of three ways, doesn't it? Either it can really freak you out and people are just like, I'm just not techie. I'm technically challenged, as I hear quite often. I can't do it. There's people that just kind of get freaked out, but I think I'm not made that way. This is just not meant for me. So I'm kind of not even going to try. You've got people that just are like, I'm going to dive in and try and just sort of figure it out and do my best and just have a go anyway, right? And then the third one is there's the people that kind of like, I just know that this isn't the best use of my time and I'm just going to pay somebody else to do it for me. There's no right or wrong one of those options. There's no one that is better or worse than the other. It's not about which option is good or bad or anything like that. At the end of the day, we're all different and there's different times. I'm just going to have to keep these up, I think. There's different times when you need different aspects. And I've used kind of both methods. I am definitely the kind of person that gets stuck in, like, I'll try and figure it out. The sort of stubborn side of me is like, I want to figure this out and try and solve the problem. But there's also been times when I've had to kind of admit defeat a bit and say, do you know what? This is just not working. You need to kind of find what's that cutoff for you? Like, when is it the right time to say, do you know what? Enough's enough. So as we're going to go through these pros and cons, maybe there's going to be some things that you haven't thought about when it comes to whether it's going to be doing it for yourself, and equally outsourcing it as well. Okay. So let me know. I'd love to hear from you. So if you're watching, say whether it's live on the replay, but if you're watching or you're listening to this, because I turned this episode into a podcast as well, I'd love to hear from you. What's your kind of default? Like, where are you at right now with what you do? Do you tend to sort of try and do stuff yourself, or are you more of a, no, I'm just going to go straight to outsourcing? So drop that comment below for me. I would love to hear from you on where you're at right now. And obviously at the end, maybe there's something that might shift for you. So as I mentioned, building a business online, there can be just lots of different things to do, and we don't know what we don't know in the beginning, right? We don't know of all the possibilities and all the different tools and all the different tech that's there. We're just here to kind of, we're like, we've got a passion, we want to start a business, we want to, be in charge of our day, we want to do things our way. Like, whatever your kind of purpose is for building a business, online brings so many possibilities, but that does come with, then there are so many options that sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming. What I want you to get from this is to help you make more of an informed decision, to help you see, again, those pros and cons. What are the pluses, but also what can be some of those downsides to both things. And just know as well that just because you might be doing one route right now, that doesn't mean that you can't change later. And that, again, there might be times when you do a bit of both. So let's just kind of dive into both of them, shall we? And do feel free to ask any questions or drop any comments as you go through this episode. Would love to hear from you. And obviously, if there's any questions, I can come to that at the end and make sure that I answer any of those for you. So let's start with kind of doing it yourself, the DIY option, learning it yourself and doing all the tech stuff yourself. So let's start with the pros. So when it comes to the benefits of doing your own tech, the first thing is that you get to learn a whole new skill. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. I would never have thought I would be doing all the stuff that I do now when I first started 7 years ago. So you get to learn a new skill. It can be great when in the beginning, when you're sort of just getting started. If you don't have the budget there to do things, and it means you can just kind of get on with things and get some things set up. So great for kind of new businesses in the, that establishing stage when you're just kind of getting things going, that startup phase, sorry. Another thing to think is that you also don't have to rely on anybody else. You're not reliant on somebody else's schedule, somebody else's availability. There's so many different things that come with relying on somebody else. Your weight, again, it's based on maybe what tools they use. So there's kind of a bit more flexibility when it's you doing it yourself. Another great thing, and this is probably one of the biggest things I'd say, and things that I deal with a lot with my clients, and I mentor a lot of people when it comes to tech stuff, it's being able to make edits and amendments yourself. So obviously if you have somebody else build a website for you, for example, whilst, again, we'll come on to the outsourcing side in a mo, but you need to at least be able to know how to use it yourself for some basic things. You need to be able to know where to go to edit, if you want to change your headline on a landing page, if you want to tweak some wording, if you want to just duplicate something and create a new page, a simple page. There's some kind of basic things that you need to know how to do. And if you're kind of completely out of the loop and you're just getting somebody else to do it for you, then when it comes to making tweaks or if something breaks, again, you're kind of reliant on somebody else and you haven't got a clue. And that can be sometimes quite detrimental. The other cool thing is that you've then actually got the choice. By learning, at least, you don't have to learn how to do absolutely everything if you don't want to, but by at least learning some of the fundamental things. It means you then have a choice whether at that particular moment, whether to do it yourself, or you might then make that decision about actually, I'm going to outsource this to somebody else. And I love the fact that I've got that choice. I'm capable of doing almost, not everything, but there are some things that have been a huge challenge for me. And I am quite technically minded, and stubborn. But it's having that choice. You can say, do you know what? I recognize that this isn't the best time for me to be maybe trying to figure this out myself, and I'm going to get somebody else. So you've got that choice in it. And then finally, you also can understand the process, especially when it comes to things like building a funnel. If you want to build an email list, if you want to create a process, and these can be kind of automated workflows, automated processes, a sequence of pages, things like that. At least if you can understand it, then it helps you to actually, I think, create it in the first place, like the content for it. It helps you understand where perhaps some sticking points might be when you're trying to optimize certain things and get things working more efficiently. So at least understanding how it kind of works, again, is a real benefit to you for the long term of your business. So now let's come to some of the downsides of learning yourself and doing it yourself, because there are some. So number one is it can be a lot slower to get things done. God, I think about the first time I set up my very first website back in 2015. It was all brand new. Anything new takes a while, doesn't it? It takes time to learn how to do things. The first time I did a Facebook Live even was a lot slower, wasn't so slick, and, wasn't so confident with knowing exactly what to do and what to say and structure and all that. Anything new is going to be a bit, hit and miss. But when it comes to the technical setup, it's in the majority of the time, it's going to be a slower process. So especially when you're new and you're trying to learn not only the software, but the process and how it all works, it's going to be a slower process. Obviously, you may not have, and likely you're not going to have the skills yet or the expertise initially to get things done initially. You might have to kind of fumble your way through, which, hey, that's been how I learn. Fumble my way through and be extremely resourceful. One of the things is you have to kind of accept that, again, highly likely, not always, but it's likely going to be lower quality, especially when it comes to things like design, like building a website, the design of it, designing a nice landing page, whatever, it's likely going to be lower quality. Because if you haven't got those skills there, and if that isn't one of your strengths, then again, you're just going to kind of figure it out. And the great thing actually is there are so many, the tools nowadays make it so much easier for you to be able to actually do things yourself. There's lots of templates and stuff that you can use. So actually you can still create things that look professional and look good enough, and that's the thing. It's kind of looking like, yep, looks great compared to this is good enough. And that there's got to be, again, a time for that. I'm all about minimum viable. Done is better than perfect. So it's not like you have to have it perfect. And there are so many things that actually help you at least get a decent basic standard for you. Sometimes you might even make all of how the techie stuff fit together. You might actually potentially make things more complex than actually are needed. And I know a few years ago, I definitely was going down this rabbit hole of things felt really complex, not necessarily complicated, but it was just having all these different tools and stuff that trying to talk to each other Once I'd added more and more things to my business, like needing a membership site, needing the payment stuff, needing to have things like contracts and agreements for client programs and stuff like that. And all these things was kind of adding, and things were getting a bit more complex. And sometimes it doesn't need to be that complex. But again, because you only know what you know, you might end up making things more complicated and more complex than actually what are needed. And again, that kind of comes from the skills that you've got and the expertise. And kind of with that, you may not know, again, you don't know how things fit together. One of the big things is when I first wanted to create my own course, I needed a membership site. And at the time I was using a WordPress website and trying to figure out like what plugin to use and how to set it all up. It was even a bit over my head. And so you just don't know, again, how things fit together, how you can get these different applications and tools to talk to each other. It can be a bit like, I don't know how these things fit together. And then finally, it's going to cost more in time and energy, and maybe some gray hairs on, it's going to cost you more in time and energy by doing it yourself. Okay. So as I mentioned, like I've done probably, I'd say 97 to 98, if not even 99% of my own tech, because I really enjoy it. It's been a progression of me learning, exploring. Like I say, I'm a very kind of resourceful and curious person. I like to figure it out. I like to understand everything, but I know that not everyone is made the same way. But there's definitely been a couple of things that they've just been over my head. And there's kind of sometimes there's no matter amount of how much I'll Google and look on stuff and try and figure it out. It's just like, this is hurting my brain. And, the stubborn part of me has been like, oh my God, I'm going to find a way. I'm going to figure it out. But then I've definitely wasted a lot of time by being a bit stubborn and not knowing when enough was enough. There's definitely been times that I should have just said, you know what? I need to let somebody else do this for me. But also there's time, when budget is tight, and if you haven't got the funds to outsource, especially if it's a big project, then sometimes you have to just try and muddle through. But again, it's this balancing act, and there's no like one size fits all kind of thing. So let's now talk about outsourcing then. So paying somebody else to do something for you, which will be their expertise. It's their skill. So again, it's got its benefits, but there are also some of those downsides as well. And some of the downsides are things that I come across on a regular basis with my clients, and say you'll kind of understand more as we go through this. And I'm curious, was there anything from the do-it-yourself side that you maybe hadn't thought about? Let me know in the comments if there was. I'd love to kind of hear from you. Okay, so outsourcing it and have somebody else do some done-for-you services. So again, let's start with the pros. So again, number one, you're obviously using a professional, somebody who has got the skills, they've got the expertise, they love doing that stuff. So why not kind of utilize their passions, their skills, their expertise, if that's not necessarily yours? But it doesn't even necessarily have to be that you're not capable of it. Sometimes just, you are capable, but again, it's just not the best use of your time. Another pro is it can be likely a lot of the time, hopefully the majority of the time, it will be done a lot quicker. It will likely be a higher standard, a higher quality finish if you're using an expert. It takes the stress away from you trying to figure it out. Again, like the amount of time spending in Google, in Facebook groups, asking people like, how do you do this? And what tool should I use? And how do I get these things to connect? It just saves you a lot of time and stress trying to figure it out. You're paying somebody else to deal with that, to problem solve for you. And that allows you to free up your time for you to focus on the things that really need you and the things that you love to do, the things that use your skills and your passions and your expertise. And again, like I've got friends that they're like, I'm capable, like I know how to do this stuff myself, but I recognize when I don't need to, like my time is better spent um, doing something else. And especially it's great if you're up against a deadline. And this has been when I've had to outsource, is when like I created my first course a few years ago, and I'm about to open up for another cohort soon. So I'll talk about that in a second, and make sure you check out any resources around on that. But when I set up my first course, I was trying to figure out how to set up this bloody membership plugin. And it really was like, oh my God, feels too over my head, trying to connect it to Stripe and all these different things that at the time was brand new to me. And it looked really complicated. And it was a bit like, oh my God. And I had a deadline of obviously when I was going to be opening up the doors to the course. And in the end, I had to kind of raise the white flag and surrender. And I reached out to a friend of mine who is more techie than me. And she, at the time, like she had a lot more experience with that. She was doing some services. She'd set up these plugins before. And so I reached out and I was like, help, have you got some availability right now to help me just finish getting this set up? And it was just such a relief to know that she was taking care of it. She knew my deadline. I could finish on, finishing up getting my promotion ready and planning the content I was going to be doing and all the other things that I had a million and one things to do. And so it was just so nice to just take a weight off, to go, oh, this can be taken care of. She's going to get it done. She knows what to do. And we can work together now to meet this deadline. Another time was more recently, probably a couple of years ago, when I added when I started doing more one-to-one work, especially with my mindset transformation therapy work. I'd never really utilized things like contracts and agreements. And, there was a whole kind of client workflow stuff. And I was learning a new tool called 17 Hats, where you can do so much stuff. And again, I knew I would be able to figure it out. I was on a bit of a deadline with when I wanted to offer this stuff. And so again, I reached out to a friend who had qualified the year before me, and she'd actually had created a service where she was like, I could just set this up for you. And it was a really, affordable price. And I was like, yep, just do it. But what I did then was, after it was set up, I then went in and learned how she did it, like how it was set up. So now I fully know exactly how to use it. And now I offer that service too for myself. It's one of those things where, again, like I knew I'd be able to do it eventually, but I knew that she could just do it for me, and it was worth the money. And then I then went back and kind of dissected how it was all done. And that really worked for me. But you might be different, and that's okay. So again, it's learning about when you need to be smart about it, the time that it might take to try and figure it out yourself. If you've got a deadline or something, it might be worth going, do you know what? I think I might need to outsource this to somebody else to utilize your time better. Now, let's talk about some of the cons then when it comes to outsourcing. Obviously, you need money. You need money to pay somebody else. Now, any kind of good person, that's not the language I wanted to use, but any kind of effective person, especially if it's a higher price, will offer payment plans. But at the end of the day, you do need to obviously invest money to pay somebody else, which can be tricky, obviously, when you don't have it. But obviously, there's ways to be resourceful. You can figure it out and know when it's appropriate to invest that and figure it out. You're then reliant on them to deliver what you need. So you're reliant on somebody meeting your deadlines. You're reliant on somebody doing what you're asking them to do and deliver what you need. You're putting your trust in them. I think when it comes to the service-based business, obviously word of mouth and referrals and Hearing from other people is a big one. It can be scary sometimes to outsource for the first time, especially on sites like Fiverr or Upwork, and you really don't know. You're just kind of going based on what they're saying their expertise are and potentially any reviews kind of thing, but you're really putting your trust in somebody else. And that can be scary, and that can be a bit of a downside. It doesn't always work out. Obviously you have to do your own due diligence on people. But it can be a little bit scary to go, oh, okay, I'm putting my money, my trust in somebody else. And also then you don't know how it works. So if something breaks or you want to tweak something, if you literally kind of have no clue, you're so reliant on them. And again, you're then having to wait for their availability. You then might be having to pay extra for somebody to do smallest of things. And I love empowering people. I love empowering people to at least learn the basics. I come across people, I do some technical mentoring for a big client of mine. And so I really do love people kind of helping to do it themselves. But again, equally, sometimes you just know when you've got to just say enough's enough. But I love at least people come to me, they've had, say, a website and a funnel built for them. And they come to me going, something's not working. Like there's a whole affiliate program. So that comes with its, that's usually the majority of what people come to me for. They're like, it's not working. And I'm like, okay, well, where do you go? And, I'm not there to necessarily just spoon feed people, but I want to empower them to make sure that they know where to go. And they're like, I've literally got no idea. And I see that as a downside because it's like, well, you own this. It's your responsibility. You're paying for it. I feel like you need to at least know the basic stuff. And so even though like now I've got some done for you offers that I've created, because again, I recognize when people, it's not the best use of their time. But one thing that I have put in place inside of all of my packages is I provide my clients with some basic video walkthroughs that it's at least going to show you how, not obviously every little nitty gritty about how I set it up, but at least give you the basics. So, especially if it's a tool that you've never used before, it's knowing where to go, where to navigate. How do you just do some basic things? If you want to change some wording, you can do that. It's not going to be showing you everything, and hopefully you won't go and fuck it up, but you at least need to know how to navigate stuff, how to get in there, And so that's a really big thing that I'm really passionate about, because I don't want, even if people pay me to do something for them, I don't want you to be reliant on me, because I'm not the done for you stuff. It's only a part of my business. It's not my full business. So I need to make sure that, I'm not overworking myself, but also I want you to be able to do things for yourself. I want to teach you how to fish, not just kind of give you fish. I'll give you a fish and then I'll at least show you how to gut it. That's kind of, and fillet it kind of thing. That's kind of my philosophy for it. So, it really is kind of weighing up the options. And again, there might be certain projects where you're like, yeah, this is a smaller thing. So actually it makes sense for me I can do it myself. That's no problem. There might be bigger things like building a website or building out a funnel, setting things up for the first time might be. And those are the kind of things that I have got both options for. It's knowing, again, what tools to use. And it's just really assessing the situation based on, the timeline that you've got for yourself, the budget that you've got, where your energy is at. Like, is it really something that's just causing you just too much stress and headache? It's just like, do you know what? It's just not worth it. It's worth investing that money to have it taken off my plate so you can then do other things inside of your business. And so that's what this episode is really all about. I want to just at least help kind of give you the tools and give you the knowledge to go, okay, yeah, there are pros, but there are cons of both, and which one fits based on right now. And as I mentioned in the beginning, just because you choose one for one project or for a certain period of time, it doesn't mean that you have to always do that. There's going to be times when you might say, hey, do you know what? This time I'm going to try and figure it out myself. And that's totally fine. So again, share with me, again, is there any kind of ahas, any takeaways that you got from this, maybe for things that you hadn't thought about? And I want to kind of let you know again, I've got one thing I'm really excited about is that I've got some options for both things. Okay. So I've got a course that's going to help you set up your own funnel, your own email autoresponder, start being able to build a list of interested and qualified leads. And I've also got a done for you option. So I've got both solutions for you depending on where you're at right now. So I'm going to put all of the details for both of those options in the show notes and in the resources section of the show notes. Obviously, if you're watching this or you're listening to this episode, check around this for a link to that or any of those direct resources. Check around this video and you can go and find out that information. Or if you want to be able to chat through, you're like, I don't know quite which one is right for me, I'm happy to have a chat. So get in my DMs on Facebook or Instagram and we can have a chat about what's right for you. And I will give you a genuine personalized recommendation. That's why I haven't got just one thing and I'm going to try and force you down one route. I really will kind of listen to where you're at, what your project is about, and give you a solution. And there may be things that it might not be something that I can help with. There, I don't know everything. There's things that again are sometimes a bit too big for me, but the stuff I'm great at is design, building websites, building funnels, building a list, automating stuff. That's stuff that I'm really passionate about. So I can certainly help you either learn it yourself or I can take care of it for you. So I hope that was useful. Again, do share any takeaways with me. Feel free to share this or tag anyone you think might find this useful. And again, I'd love to kind of hear maybe where you're at now. Have you sort of swapped sides? Again, not that it's about right or wrong, but have you maybe things that you're now considering that you hadn't before, and you're like, actually, I can see that you might maybe just make some different decisions. And again, it's totally up to you based on what you're doing. But regardless, it's about you having that choice, about you making that decision. And don't be scared to have a go yourself. And equally, don't be scared to say, oh my God, I'm paying all this money, because it does come with so many benefits. So there's great benefits to both doing it yourself or having it done for you. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. So great to be back. I'll be back in 2 weeks for another episode. If you've got any questions or any comments, do drop them below. Would love to see what you thought of this episode. Again, any takeaways, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got. So good luck with the tech side of things for your business, whichever one you choose. I'm here for you if you need any support for either option. But otherwise, I will see you on the next episode. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.